I'll say this, Cleveland is one of the most interesting teams in the NFL to do a mock draft for and really deep dive this roster because there's so many variables with this football team that we really need to talk about. So let's go. We're getting into business right away here. And we got to start with the offensive line and the roster needs because the offensive line is the number one thing that they have to improve next season. Like, just straight up, if there is only one thing that they can improve, I guess getting a quarterback, you figure on him and Shador Sand, who knows what's going to happen there. But offensive line is the huge piece that they have to address this offseason. From left tackle to right tackle, this offensive line could be a completely new offensive line depending on Joe Batonio and his retirement, if he does end up retiring or not. I'm going to assume that maybe he runs it back another year. It would be great. It really would be. They need him, especially with the fact that they could be having a whole new offensive line in many ways. Having the experience and the know-how of somebody like Joe Batonio can help you out a lot. Now, when you talk about this offensive line and how approach they can take to rebuild this unit relatively quick, it starts off with early draft capital. There's no doubt about it. Like, they need to spend one of those first rounders on a tackle. If I had to choose between wide receiver and tackle if I could only pick one of those, I would pick offensive line. And they're going to need a tackle. They're going to need two tackles. I think they're going to need to look in free agency. They're going to need to look in the draft. They're going to have to use both avenues to really improve this offensive line. So that's really the name of the game here. The guys that I'll be watching out for here to possibly be starters, other than Joe Batonio, would be Luke Whippler and Tevin Jenkins. I think both guys will. I mean, I think Jenkins will be back. I think they'll give him some sort of like 1 year, $5 million type of contract to be the starter and to certainly give him an opportunity. I thought he was good down the stretch too for them. It's the injury situation with Jenkins, and that's why I think that he'll be more on like a 1 year scenario where he gets to prove it type of thing. And if it works out, then maybe you look at a contract extension from there. I would put him at right guard and lock him in right there as your starter. And then we draft somebody too to give you some depth and also for the future at left guard. That's really my view on this, slash even center. Because Luke Whippler, I thought he was pretty good. He's not really a people mover or anything like that, but I thought he did a pretty good job protecting up the middle. And generally speaking, he was not a guy that was like, oh my gosh, he keeps getting whooped or anything like that. So he's a dude. I thought he played better than Ethan Posick down the line. So we'll say that. Anyway, I think he's a guy to watch out for, at least give him an opportunity to start, as well as drafting and bringing in some competition to help him. Whether that's a veteran, whether that's a draft pick, they're going to need to do something there on that at that center position too. My view on it, though, is the tackle position is a huge, huge need. They were rocking in there with Cam Robinson and KT Leverston for a good chunk of the season. Lucas hasn't worked out. I think he'll be cut after this season. DeJuan Jones wasn't great when he was out there, and he got injured, done for the year. Conklin, once again, injured, done for the year. He's a free agent, and unfortunately, that just has not worked out. So finding tackles is a key scenario for this football team. Wide receiver, also a need for this team. And it's really too bad in many ways because this wide receiving room could actually be better than what it is. I do think part of it is quarterback play and whatnot, but at the end of the day, they have to improve. They can't drop the football as much. Jerry Jeudy led the NFL in drops with like 10. It was bad. He was dropping everything, it seemed like, and he's got to really improve in that case scenario. He's not the worst wide receiver as much as Brown's. Like he is still a guy that can get open, create separation, and things like that. But he has to get better. Like he cannot be playing like this, especially for his contract and whatnot. I'm not cutting him because his cash is already guaranteed for this next season. It makes no sense to cut him. And in fact of the matter is, who do I feel confident in replacing him at this moment is another thing. Cedric Tillman's a good wide receiver and showed a lot of flashes. The problem, he's dealt with so many injuries. So if he can get healthy, I actually think he could be a really good wide receiver too in the NFL. He's got all the talent to be a good wide receiver too in the NFL. It just has been injuries have derailed him so much throughout his career. Isaiah Bonds looked good in stretches. I mean, with his speed, man, him and Shador Sanders had a really good connection in the deep ball games. So that's something to keep an eye on. Corley, more of a gadget guy. Thrash hasn't worked out. Yeah, Gabe Larvidan, who played a considerable amount. He'll be more of a roster bubble guy going into next year, hopefully, right? More, and I'm not saying that against the Larvidan or nothing. Solid guy and everything, but ultimately they need more competition in here. They can't do what they did last season, which was nothing. onto the tight end room. This is good. I mean, David Njoku's going to be the big thing. Some people say bring him back, his loyalty and everything like that. And I love David Njoku. Whether or not he is back, I'll let the Browns brass work that out. I think there might be, a bridge might be burned at this point. Who knows? We'll see what happens. I think Blake Whiteheart can be a good backup blocking number 2 tight end. I do think they would need to bring somebody else in this case scenario, though. You got your number 1, though, in Harold Fanning Jr., who looks to be that guy. Like, I think that was a slam dunk pick, and he's another one of those reasons why Andrew Berry still has a job this offseason. It's the way that he did in the draft. Obviously, Carson Swessinger, but Harold Fanning Jr., such a great rookie season, and that was one that I think we all saw coming in. Why he fell at that point is kind of crazy, even which way. But I think that when you rock into this, you look at Harold Fanning Jr., Blake Whiteheart, and a veteran / a draft pick to fill out that room, because they're going to probably keep 3 tight ends on the roster actively, and then your practice squad guys. On to the running back room now. Quinshon Judkins. When he was out there healthy, he looked really, really good. And I don't know what happened to my green bar there, but it's gone. It is gone. It disappeared. My graphic came out here, not working too good, clearly. But him and Dylan Sampson is your 1-2 punch. Sampson showed some flashes as a receiver this season, and I think that they will be just fine of a complementary, systematic approach right here. I'm not super worried about this. I'm cool even with keeping Rocket as your running back 3. They could bring in a veteran. I'm not going to fret too much about this. Jerome Ford, I think he'll go somewhere else if I had to guess, but any which way. Bring in a veteran, late round draft pick, UDFA is your 3rd, 4th guy to competing with Rocket Sanders. That's the only recommendation I have here. Not a big priority. They handled that. And that was another one of Andrew Berry's good picks there. Quarterback, Shedeur Sanders. Whether this is going to work out or not, I don't know. I'm hearing rumors that he's on the bubble right now or whatever, this and that. I really don't know what to expect Shedeur Sanders. He's either going to be the starting quarterback next season or he's going to be on a new team. That's what it seems like with Shedeur right now. So it's your guess is as good as mine at this point. I saw, this thing with Shedeur Sanders is I love the fact, like, when he got time and he was able to really read the field, he was able to make some great throws. And he actually challenged all 3 levels of the field. Unfortunately, unlike Dylan Gabriel, he just really wasn't answering the bell in that regard. It was more of a check down Charlie scenario, short, intermediate of the field at best. But Shedeur gives them full length, ability to attack every part of the field. And as I said earlier, him and Isaiah Bond had a really nice connection deep, especially up the seams. He is going to have to really improve his timing in this process, and getting the ball out on time is a huge problem for Shedeur Sanders. Whether you think that can take that step into year number 2 is going to be a big question for his success in the NFL next year. Maybe you get prime time. Deion Sanders said, "Good, no, I think they're going to have to figure it." We'll talk about more coaching candidates here in a second. Shedeur, though, my guess is they're probably going to add somebody, whether it's free agency in the draft. I don't know. And as I said, it was tough. I watched the games, and I don't know if I truly see it with Shedeur Sanders. That's my opinion. I'm rooting for him. I really am. But they're going to have to add competition. There's just no ands if. So it's either a 1st, 2nd round pick or a free agent. Maybe they get Malik Willis. I don't know. That's always tricky and figure that. I think he goes to Miami if I had to guess. But that would be something to consider as a veteran as well. All options are on the table. Even a call Deshaun Watson. No, I'm joking. He's done. They'll restructure his money and it'll go from that route. But quarterback, still the number 1 need that they have to figure out on this roster, in my opinion. Offensive line, wide receiver. So offense is the heavy need. Going on the defense side of the ball, this is where I would say this right now. I don't care if they ignore the defense completely on the first 2, 3 rounds, because the offense is such a big need that they need to be able to just bring their offense up enough. Even if their defense goes down from a top 3 unit to, let's say, a top 10 unit, that's fine if they can improve their offense to just being mediocre. But of course, they still have some needs that have to be addressed on this defense. And starting off with the defensive line, this is more about a depth thing. I think you keep everybody here. And the only guy that you could consider moving from is Malik Collins. I wouldn't, but it would be something like if they wanted to do something like that, they could. At the end of the day, though, I think that Collins was fantastic at the beginning of the season. He started off the season red hot, cooled down a little bit, got injured, but I think that he is such a good football player. You pair him up with Mason Graham next season, and you keep that defensive interior really rocking. Michael Hall, got to get healthy. That's the big thing. Like, super talented, just got to get healthy. Now, the big question for me is who's like that fourth guy, right? Because Aiden Huntington, Sam Kamara, I thought Huntington played pretty good. He was an undrafted guy from Tulane, so I thought they got really good production from him, and maybe he can step up into a more of like a 400 snap role next season. At least as a possibility, good rotational player for them. So Shelby Harris may not be a must resign. We'll see. I'm fine with them bringing him back. That's just going to come down to what they want to do there. Sam Kamara, ideally, maybe you can bring him back. He's kind of like a fringe practice squad roster guy. Maybe they can keep calling him up or something like that. But not super worried about the interior defense line. Get somebody out in day 3 to give you some depth. Maybe bring in a free agent if you lose Shelby Harris. All on the table there. Edge rusher, same thing here. Just go out and get some depth in the draft slash free agent, possibly cheap free agent. Nothing too crazy to talk about. This defensive line's fantastic. We saw these guys wrecking havoc. Even Alex Wright, man, I got to maybe start moving him up. I thought he made some really nice plays, and it helps when you have Myles Garrett on the opposite side. But in his own right, I thought Alex Wright was pretty good. And Mason Graham after the bye. Oh my gosh, what the heck happened, man? He just turned on a lightning switch. It was like, boom, I'm ready. I'm here, coach. And he was destroying. He was really making a ton of plays in that second half of the season. So that's great to see. Definitely another big hit by Andrew Berry in the draft. So, and Myles Garrett, of course, the undisputed king now as the all-time sack season leader. It's such a good season for Myles Garrett. He's unbelievable. He is unbelievable. He should have won the MVP in my opinion, but whatever. They don't do it. It's always quarterbacks. Linebacker we go, which is also extraordinarily good. You got Devin Bush. Came from nowhere. You right? He looked like to be a bust. Well, he isn't anything but a bust. Maybe he's going to Canton sort of bust if he can keep this trajectory as still way. We're not going there, right? He's got a long way to go before we start talking about that. But he had a fantastic season. One of the better linebackers in the NFL this year, like period. He was so good. Carson Schlesinger was so good. These two guys were fantastic. I thought Schlesinger came out of the gate like lightning hot, cooled down a little bit in the mid-season, and finished strong. Really good season from Schlesinger and Bush. These two guys, excellent. JOK, I hope he's okay. And more important is his health for his future and all those sort of things. And the big thing with JOK, I did see him. What is he break? He broke a guitar earlier in the year, right? He was out there in one of those games, but I forget which one it was. But I will say this: I think it's very unlikely that he suits up again, but I'm really rooting for him, and we'll see what happens there. Devin Bush, though, would be a must re-sign for me. Got to bring him back with the way he played and the chemistry that they have with him and Carson Schlesinger out there. They could bring Jerome Baker back as a third guy. Same thing with Mohamed Diabate. Maybe bring him back for special teams, but you also have Arnold there who can go in that role. They're going to probably keep about 5 guys at linebacker on the active roster, and then they'll have their practice squad guys. So if you can do something like that, and if Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is more on IR, then that would leave with Arnold, Diabate, Baker, Bush, and Schlesinger as your main guys on the roster here. They could also spend a late round draft pick on somebody, some depth, but really it comes down to Devin Bush and what can they lure him to bring him back, or is some other team going to snatch him up with the way he played this season? I could definitely see it. I'm going to try to bring him back. On to the secondary now, where this is something I don't think is a huge need for them, but it would be something like I want to add more competition in the slot, whether that's a veteran in free agency or in the draft. And then outside cornerback wise, this is something they can spend like a later day 3 pick on if they wanted to, or a free agent. All those things are on the table because Martin Emerson, I do think he'll try to go somewhere else to get a starting gig. That's my guess. I mean, if he wants to come back and compete with Tyson Campbell, or at least just be depth for behind Denzel Ward, then I'm all game for that because I do like Martin Emerson. He's super talented, just dealt with injuries. It just comes down to whether or not he's going to be wanting to vie for an opportunity somewhere else to be a starter. Maybe the Eagles could lure him away to be the outside cornerback there. Who knows? A lot of possibilities for Emerson. I would just say this is something where you're looking at depth in free agency / the draft on early day 3, slot corner, areas like that. But their secondary has been pretty good. Denzel Ward, Tyson Campbell was great in the trade over, and Harden's he was definitely the weak link of their secondary. I saw him get beaten coverage multiple times, but at the same time, I also thought he made some nice plays too. I saw him make some nice plays out there. He's a guy to watch out for. What was he, like a 7th round pick a season ago from San Diego to South Dakota, something like that. But anyway, definitely somebody to compete, right? I want to add more competition at least. Safety wise, you got Rodney Hickman Jr., you got Grant Delpit, really solid duo together. I thought they were both really excellent. Delpit was on fire at the beginning of the year, maybe cooled off a little bit, didn't see him as much at the end of the season. And Rodney Hickman, though, had a great season. I thought he made so many big time plays throughout the year and really like him. He's a restricted free agent. So give him the second round tender, keep him around. Rashawn Jenkins, I'm cool with keeping him around as like the veteran in the room. He's also a good special teamer. So I am totally fine with them bringing back Rashawn Jenkins. Slash, they could spend a day 3 pick on this to get some more depth. They're probably going to keep like 5 guys in the safety room on the roster. Now we go on to the coaching staff here. Who is going to be the next head coach? Now, I'll give you my 2 cents here and who I think would be best to take a chance on here. I would go with Grant Udinski. I know Jim Schwartz is vying. You get some other candidates. A lot of them are dropping out, unfortunately. And it's tricky, right? And there's things going around. Oh, we're going to do their homework and put in these essays and stuff. I don't know. I don't know what that's going on. Andrew Barry and the ownership and Haslam's and all, they're trying to figure it out. But Udinski's a guy that I like. And he was somebody going back to Minnesota, his time in Minnesota. I'm like, this dude's going to be a head coach. And I totally could see it. I really could. There's going to be a lot of variables there. He's a super young guy. I mean, he just graduated college not that long ago, right? So he's a really young guy. And there is something about him that he continues to be a spark up in coaching conversations. We'll see what happens, right? He's now working with Jacksonville. So he was working with Kevin O'Connell and most recently with Liam Cohen. So those are some good minds to be around for sure. I'd give him a shot. And Udinski, what a great name, too, for a Cleveland Browns head coach, Udinski. I think that just makes a lot of sense. That's kind of the way that I would go at the moment. On to the free agency period. Now, I've changed my structure on this. If you know and you've seen some of these videos before, you see that I do cap situation. It's total bogus. It is complete and utter bogus. That's what I've just found out. I mean, I kind of figured it was bogus cap space and what they do. These accountants, they all get their crunching the numbers. It doesn't matter. Cap is a phony thing. It's literally just an accounting equation. These GMs, these owners, they don't give a crap, from my understanding, about the cap number. They care about the cash number. That is really what they look at. And for the Cleveland Browns, they are the biggest cash spenders in the NFL right now. They are on tap to probably spend about $370 million, which would be the most in the NFL. And that's where my budget is. Currently, they're at about 210, 220. And this is really variable, okay? It's within $10 million or so. And I'm going to try to keep it within that budget range. Ultimately, they have quite a bit of cash still that they're going to be looking to spend. And they're going to figure out the accountants, those smart accountants, they're going to get all those number crunching things in the cap dialed in, the beep, bop, boop, they'll get all that figured out. I'm not worried about that anymore. So I'm doing my research. There's a really good YouTuber out there who goes through all this cap cash thing. And really what matters at the end of the day is the cash number. That's what they're going to look at. And the Browns are spending they basically spend about 120% over the cap. And basically that means they're spending more like 2028's cap money at this point. So in 2026, they're going to be looking 2 years ahead and spending that type of money. So keep an eye on what the Browns do. I'm starting off with cutting Cornelius Lucas. We got the exclusive restricted free agent resigns. Pretty self-explanatory there. I budget in a miscellaneous expend. That's just like, practice squad, guys calling up injuries throughout the season, all that sort of stuff that you allocate in there for a miscellaneous budget. Here is the team resigns. These are all the cash numbers. We re-signed Blake Whiteheart, and he'll be a blocking tight end for us there. You got Tevin Jenkins, Joel Petonio. Assuming Joel comes back for another season. If he doesn't, then we're going to have to figure something else out. Then in that case scenario, you would go ahead and substitute somebody out on the open market to come in and fill that shoes there. Corey Bojorquez, will bring him back as the punter. And then on the defense side of the ball, we'll go ahead and bring in Cameron Thomas, Mohamed Diabate, Devin Bush, and Jerome Baker there at linebacker. I thought Devin Bush is somebody that I just couldn't pass up on. As long as he wants to come back, we'll give him a 3-year, $51 million contract, which is in line with like the Zach Bonds. And it would be $17 million in cash there. It could be a little bit more. Depends, right? Depends on the signing bonus because they can give more money up front. But I'll just go ahead and budget in $17 million in cash flow for that first season. Trey Avery, Rashawn Jenkins, Rodney Hickman, self-explanatory. Jenkins, depth, special teams. Hickman as the starter there as that second round tender cost. And then we go on to the outside free agent signings here. where you got to budget in $60 million for their draft pick. You figure out if they don't trade down, if they trade down, they can probably save about $5 million in cash flow. But if they stick and pick at number 6, that pick's probably going to come in somewhere between 25 to $30 million in cash for that first year with the signing bonus and everything. So that's where my budget is, about $60 million in cash flow. It is always tricky projecting how much cash it's going to cost. So, we're a little fluid with that number. I'll be real, but that's where I'm budgeting it in. We have one big, huge free agent signing here with Rashid Walker from Green Bay. 3 years, $63 million. That's a $21 million average. It's just a little bit up above Dan Moore and what he got paid from Tennessee last season. $30 million in cash flow is going to be coming into him on that first year, basically from that bonus that we're going to give him, which will probably be a $20 million bonus. And then we got Foster Moreau and Kendall Vildor, the villain, the Vildor. No, Kendall Vildor here as some depth at corner because he could also play in the slot for them, but also on the outside too. So some good depth in the corner back room. Same thing with tight end. Foster Moreau has been a nice solid backup tight end. That hits us right at the budget there. Let those accounting equation people do what they do in the magic that they perform. It's crazy, man. I say this every year. You look at like Mickey Loomis and it's like, how does he end up signing? Well, I figured it out. It's cash flow. That's what it really is. So that does it here for free agency. Looking at the roster before the draft, I got to get offensive line, right tackle, interior offensive line. We're going to be looking at that. Believe you me. Wide receiver, absolutely. And then quarterback. We got to look at quarterback still. Defensively, I'm not as concerned about this. Defensive line depth, corner depth, slot corner to compete there. And then also safety depth. That's really what we're looking at. But it's draft time. Ring the bell. Cleveland. Let's go. Dog pound. What are we doing, right? I know you're going to be looking at that second pick right now saying, oh, here it comes. We'll get to that in a minute. But let me talk about the first easy pick. Francis Mauigoa, slam dunk, right tackle, whether it's Fanu, Mauigoa, plug-and-play starters. They need that locked-in guy. Improve their offensive line. It's priority number 1 for me. We can't allow whatever quarterback to come in here to get pummeled. They need to have a good run game. Now I know is also going to be a monster in the run game for them. It's just too easy of a pick. I love Mauigoa, and yeah, boom. Then we go on to this pick. Hold on, let me get my thoughts here. Breathe. Look, I know this is tricky, and the way he finished the season really leaves a sore taste in a lot of people. It's like, I get it. I really do, and I'm scared about Ty Sampson. However, he is a talented guy, and what he showed off in the first half of the season, you're like, yeah, this dude was a top 5 pick. And then what happened at the end of the season? Now he's like a day 3, so you balance that out. Ideally, you get him on day 2. Quarterbacks go early. That's kind of what it is. And when you get to pick 24, at that point, I'm like, all right. In terms of who's available on the board comparative to the quarterback and taking a chance on a guy like Ty Simpson or even Drew Aller, I'm higher on Drew Aller. That is what it is. I am okay with taking a chance on a guy like Ty Simpson at this point with the drop off in talent, and you're probably not like a true first round guy available at pick number 24. So taking a chance on Ty Simpson just makes too much sense. They're clearly gotta add some help in here with Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel. That's what we're doing, okay? It doesn't exclude them from going after a quarterback in next year's draft class either. If it doesn't work out, then keep taking shots. And at that point, you're probably saying, okay, Andrew Berry, maybe we move on or whatever. Who knows? But I got to take a chance. That's just what it is. Omar Cooper, we got to get a wide receiver here. And I think Cooper is a fantastic wide receiver that can be a day 1 starter for them. Put him in at the slot. Tillman, Judy, that's your little 3. It's not perfect, I'll say that, but I think Cooper can work in early and be a true impact for this football team day 1. I love Cooper, big fan, not just since I'm an IU grad. Yeah, partially, but he's also just a fantastic player. And you got Matt Golban from Michigan State. I'm a Spartan fan too. So back in the day, especially growing up as a kid, I was a big Spartan fan. And I think Golban, though, at center, he transferred over from Wake Forest. He played guard there. He could either be their left guard of the future, or he competes with Luke Whippler right away and ends up being that starting center. There's a lot of possibilities. I just want to add in somebody to that interior offensive line who I do think can be a starter for them, at least whether it's next season or the season after. Moving on to day 3 picks, we get Jalen Kilgore from South Carolina. He's a big physical guy, played in the slot, has some safety experience too, but I feel like he can come in there and compete with Miles Harden and give him some help in the slot. We got Alba Regis as a good run defender, rotational player on the interior defensive line. just rotation. That's really what this is. Trying to have some more defensive. Since we didn't bring back Shelby Harris, I think Regis gives him some more. Regis Philbin, right? Where is he? Who wants to be a millionaire? But he is going to help them out on that interior defensive line. You got Dennis Sutton from Penn State. He's going to add some more depth off the edge. He's got some tools. He didn't have the season I'm sure he wanted. Maybe he'll boost his stock at the Senior Bowl. But for right now, he's a guy that I see more as a day 3 selection. You got Bishop Fitzgerald from USC. He's got some range, man. He does. He was out there with Corey Ramsey as that duo in the back end. Got to, shore up maybe some tackling and some coverage busts. But ultimately, he can be a guy that develops. And if they don't re-sign Rodney Hickman after next season or Dale Pitt as well, who are free agents, they got to figure that out. Fitzgerald can be a developmental guy for them, if nothing else, some special teams help. DJ Campbell, Texas guard that comes in and just gives them some more depth and competition. Maybe he can be their right guard of the future if Jenkins doesn't work out or if the injury situation is just too bad. He's an experienced guy, a lot of talent, and definitely has that ability to feel like, okay, he's got 3 or 4 years of starting experience. So he's got a lot of experience that I feel good about there too. And then Michael Heldman from Central Michigan, the Chippewa University there. He is a defensive lineman that I've not watched at all. I need to see if he's going to be in any of the all-star games. But at the end of the day, he's going to be some depth for them to just ultimately compete for a roster position and be a rotational player. And maybe if he can see 100 snaps, that'd be great as a 7th round pick. Absolutely. So that's going to do it here for the draft. And here it is. After free agency and the draft for the Cleveland Browns, what did we do? We improved the offensive line. Let's hope, right? Francis Mauigoa in the draft. Rasheed Walker in free agency. We also added Matt Golban to compete at center and at guard for the long haul. Joel Petonio may be back for one more season, one more ride. And then Jenkins and Whippler would be your returners as your starters. We also brought in Campbell in the draft to get some more help and some depth. Zach Zinter hasn't worked out at this point, so Campbell can provide some depth there. Or at least to compete with Zinter in one of those guys I imagine would end up making the roster. And then we go on to the wide receiver position. We added Omar Cooper. Oh, baby. I love Omar Cooper. Put him in a slot. Cedric Tillman, Jerry Jeudy as your starters. Isaiah Bond, of course. Corley and Thrash will be your 5th and 6th guys, with Larvidan competing with those dudes to compete for that. Because I think they'll keep 6 wide receivers going into next season on the active roster. And then at running back, we didn't do anything there. Tight end, we added Foster Moreau. We added Ty Simpson to compete at least with Shador Sanders. May the best man win. In this case scenario, you probably would have to cut Dylan Gabriel or, Deshaun Watson. If you just on IR, slap him on IR, then you keep all 3 of those guys as your quarterbacks on the roster. On to the defense side of the ball, where we just go in depth purposes here. No day 1 starters. These are just guys that are going to come in. Oh, I mean, guess Jalen Kilgore could be a day 1 starter. He'll compete with Miles Harden right away. They could also have Vildor go in that slot position depending. They could bring in a different type. They could bring like an Arthur Mollett too. There's a couple of guys. Maybe D. Alford would be an option too if they want to find more of a day 1 guy at the slot position. There's a couple of areas that they could look at for there. But I went with Jalen Kilgore there. But we added Regis, Sutton, and Heldman as some defensive line depth and Bishop Fitzgerald at safety. So that's it, man. That is what we did for the Cleveland Browns. Let me know what you think, agree or disagree. What would you do differently, right? There's a lot of different areas. Ty Simpson's going to be the most controversial pick, I imagine, of this draft. Maybe you say go wide receiver at that 6th overall pick. There's a couple of different areas, right, that this team could approach it as. At the end of the day, they have to improve the offense. The number one thing. If they can turn this offense into like a borderline top 15, somewhere between even 12 to 20 type of offense, they could be a really good football team. They could be a playoff type of team. I'm not saying that, it just depends. They're going to have to hit on Ty Simpson for them to go into that transition. But if Ty Simpson ends up working out, this is a playoff team. Like, that's really the thing. And that's why I took a chance. Just kind of what it is. So, hey, once again, I hope you guys have a really good day and keep it cooling out there. Actually, keep it warming, right? It's cold. It's real cold right now. If you're up in the Midwest or out east or whatever, it's cold. Or I guess in Wyoming up in there, Canada, it's freezing. So keep it warm and keep it safe. I'll talk to you guys later.